we're now moving on to Tim Snook, who is responsible for sport and leisure for East Suffolk District Council, and basically he was explaining what the intent is for the District Council. I mean, as you're all aware, we are very much in need of becoming a much healthier and fitter community, society, and that goes from the toddlers to the old greys. We need to introduce Zimmer frame racing and all those sort of goodly things that would make us much fitter and have a better quality of life. So this is what we're looking to do. Now, there has been concern, continues to be great concern by a number of people, as to what the justification is on moving a leisure centre with a swimming pool and other goodly things out of what is the tourist area, the seafront, because I mean, Felixsowe, one of its great attractions has got a sea, you know, it's the seaside. You're going to the seaside and all that stuff. And normally in most places, and being a West Countryman, most of the resorts down there, if you go to them and you go to the beach but it's raining, you very often find that you've got a leisure centre and a swimming pool adjacent to the seaside. So you know, instead of swimming in the sea, you've got a swimming pool to swim in, and that seems to be its normal locale. So there is concern as to why you would actually move away from the seafront with your swimming pool. The sports centre, Brackenbridge, you know, we acquired at a really unbelievably knockdown price with the bankruptcy of the college, and perhaps there may be some justification to perhaps relocate that where there were more sports fields available, etc, etc, etc. But a lot of people didn't really accept the fact that this only needs to be driven because you only want one lot of staff in one cash register to deal with clients both at the sports centre and at the leisure centre. So anyway, listen to young Tim do his presentation, and hopefully we'll include a few questions that were made to him following the whole presentation. Okay, here's Tim.
So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Tim.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tim Snook, and I'm East Suffolk Council's Leisure Partnership Development Manager. First of all, can you all hear me? Is this the right? No. Yeah, okay, great. Thank you. I have been here doing consultation, I think it must have been 6 years ago, so some of you will have been there for that. So where we are is East Suffolk Council currently has 6 leisure facilities across the district. And we have 2 operators, Places Leisure for the facilities in the south of the district and Everyone Active in the north of the district. Just looking here, you can see, well, first of all, I'll just go through. When I started in 2016, Suffolk Coastal, as it was then, had a clear leisure strategy, which was they wanted to increase physical activity and participation. They wanted to improve the financial sustainability of providing all these leisure centres, and to do that they wanted to go through a redevelopment programme of their leisure centres to make sure that we had the right facilities providing the right activities and that they were maintained on a long-term basis. So how that looked was that it was mainly refurbishing some of the existing sites, but it was to look at replacing the current 2 Felixsowe facilities with a one sort of destination facility, which I'll go into more detail in a moment. But looking at this picture, you can see what we've achieved so far. At the top is Water Lane and Lowestoft. The one in the middle is Waveney Valley and Bungay, and then you've got Deben on the bottom right and on the bottom left, and on the bottom right is Leiston Leisure Centre. So we have delivered that so far. So a little bit more about Felixstowe. You will all know that we have the current Seafront Leisure Centre and Brackenbury. So, as I said, the aim was to replace both of these, and the reasons for that is that both facilities are tired and sort of reached the end of life. The Felixstowe Leisure Centre is a slightly difficult design. It's got concrete, it's really difficult to change, it's not on a big enough site to accommodate both facilities. And being next to the sea, first of all, swimming pools are really difficult with all the chemicals in the pools, and they do wear through everything and make it difficult to maintain, and they do reach a natural end of life. And of course, being on the seafront, they get a lot of salt on them as well. So that's 1985 when this opened, and Brackenbury Leisure Centre is roughly around 1990. Now, normally for a size of the town of Felixsowe and with these two facilities, you would have them together to make them more financially sustainable and mean that members and the public get to use all the facilities on one site. So, as I mentioned, we've refurbished all the facilities apart from these two now. We have just undertaken some refurbishment of the existing Seafront Leisure Centre because we want to make sure that we maintain customer standards until the new facility is ready. So we did some feasibility and looking at how we could address the Felixsowe leisure centres going forward. And what we found is leisure is a really difficult business to make it financially sustainable. It comes down to catchment areas and how many people and how many members you have. So we looked at several sites. I think the existing Felixsowe site, Brackenbury, Eastwood Hoe and North Felixstowe. And what we found is that when we moved it to the North Garden Neighbourhood site along there, it increased by double the catchment area. It tends to be that people will travel through either walking, cycling or driving 15 to 20 minutes distance. So again, that makes it instantly more financially viable to operate. Therefore, as you can see, the new site, where we want it to make the business, we will be attracting from wider than Felixstowe in order to do that. And that is important, again, for the business plan and increasing participation going forward. So, there is a wider plan for Felixstowe. This is just some of the pictures on there that we're doing. So, I'm going to start off with the Felixstowe Sports Hubs, which people might have heard of before, and it's been going on for a number of years. But where we are with that is that we've got cricket, rugby and football in Felixstowe, and their sites previously were shared, so that rugby at Coronation Park had cricket and rugby, Delwood Avenue has cricket and football, and that was difficult because as the clubs wanted to grow, the seasons crossed over and it made it hard for them to develop further. So what we've looked at is how that we can separate each of these clubs to have their own sort of ground as such, so that they can develop and improve facilities as they go forward for their long-term future. And so what we've done so far, obviously Deben Fields, which you've heard of, we managed to obtain that, and we've already moved a cricket pitch to Deben Fields, and eventually the cricket will move permanently there, with a second pitch at the Felixstowe School, where they can work with the school to develop the sport going forward as well. So at the moment the third team are playing there. Later this year we are looking to build their pavilion there for them as part of that process. So we've moved cricket off Coronation. They now have their pitches in place and they have a long-term lease for the use of that. And we've also supported them with the cost of the floodlights so that they can develop their club further. So we're making progress on that. There's still work to do. Then there's Eastwood Hoe, which will form part of what we're talking about today, but the pitches there are underused, and part of the reason for that is that changing facilities are so far away from the pitches, and it's very open, and clubs find it windy and don't particularly like using it. So as part of this overall plan, we will look to improve the quality of those pitches, probably plant some trees, etc., to try and mitigate the wind issues and have the changing facilities right next to it. Indoor bowls, a part of the work that we've been doing is, one of the issues with indoor bowls is that they don't tend to be built in leisure centres going forward. Part of the reason for that is that it does sit empty for quite a considerable amount of time. So as part of the Deben Fields area, there is an area there which is called Knowles Sports Hall, and we're working with the Indoor Bowls Club to provide a new facility for them that they can have, again, a long-term lease and they can operate and grow as a club, and we're working with them to do that. And then play areas, I just thought I'd mention that. We've got Sarah from the leisure team over there today. Sarah's overseeing refurbishment or end of life, looking at how we can improve our play areas across the whole district, but there's several happening in Felixstowe, of which Sarah, I'm sure, will tell you more if you want to go and speak to her afterwards. So just some of the work that we're doing. So back in 2018, we had drawn a floor plan of what we wanted within the facility, that how much that would cost, and how the business plan would work, would it work, etc., etc. Obviously, since 2018, one, we didn't secure the land at that time, but also we've been through the pandemic and we've been through all the utilities costs, which has really hit the leisure service. So basically, leisure stopped dead during the pandemic and has had to rebuild itself. Nationally, what's happened is leisure centres and facilities that have already been refurbished in recent years or are new got back to their pre-COVID days 10% quicker than others. But then the utilities problem came up, which meant that gas, which is the most, or has always been the way of how we would heat the swimming pools, etc., went up hugely in price. And also, things have changed further, whereby going forward, we won't want to use gas for our leisure centres. We will want to be more carbon neutral, more green technology. So we've also visited several sites that have got that. The Raveland Sports Centre in Portsmouth is the first site that has reached BREEAM Excellent. And in that, that's reduced all the energy costs. There is no gas, it's all electric. There's all proper systems in place, so you don't have air conditioning, but you go into the gym and it's all cool. It's very clever, very technical on how they do that. So we're visiting sites to make sure that we learn, so that we can, when we finally design properly ours and have it, it will be fabric first design, so there'll be no wasted corridors that need heating. That we can reduce the energy costs. It will be electric, air source heat pumps, that sort of thing, mitigated with the additional cost because it's more expensive than gas, with PV, which is solar panels, etc., to make sure, again, that the business works. So it's got more challenging as we've gone on, and prices have gone up. So where we are, if we could move forward, is originally we've got a floor plan, which we're now revisiting. The idea is that we would make sure that with the current facilities you have, that we would have at least that and some to make it more of a destination facility. So things that we're looking at, and all of these are to be confirmed with what we're looking at again, but the idea was work with Sport England, we'll look at future growth to make sure that this facility, if designed correctly, can be there for the next 40 to 60 years and has the ability to change when different activities come in. So it's got to be the right rooms, the right sizes, etc. So one of the things we were clear on is that swimming, to make sure we've got enough swimming space going forward, we've currently got 6 lanes, we're looking at 8. Teaching pool that we haven't got at Felixsowe that has a movable floor, which really opens up what activities and what age groups that you can teach, because swimming is a life skill which is really important. And then the leisure swims, obviously you've got a flume at the moment, so it's what can we put in there to make it a destination, looking at splash pads and things like this. Sports hall at Brackenbury, you've got 5 courts, so we need to replace that. Gym at the current Felixsowe, although we just refurbished that, it's a very small gym for the size of Felixsowe, so we'd be looking at something that was much larger than that. I say 120 stations. The way that gyms are working, it's not just stations now, it's about flexible space and other things that you can bring in it. So it's having the space to do that. Dance studios, squash courts. We have 2 squash courts at Brackenbury, so we would want to replace those. Squash is an interesting one. It does sometimes become more popular and go down. Its key times are between probably Monday to Thursday in the evenings. So it's, okay, so that space, how can it be used all the time? When we went to the Raveland one, they have 2 glass-backed squash courts, but the middle moves so that you can use it as a dance studio as well. So a lot of what we're looking at has to be sort of really thought-through design. Then one of the key things, I've got some other bits there, cafe, treatment rooms, those sort of things, climbing wall, that sort of thing. But more importantly, we're looking that instead of just a leisure centre, it's more of a health and wellbeing hub. So you have the business of leisure, which is there to provide on that, but as you come in, there'll be a cafe, potentially a quiet cafe. We're working with the NHS to look at, do we have treatment rooms there? As our leisure, we now provide Feel Good Suffolk, which is adult weight management, smoking cessation, and physical activity, and we do strength and balance. So all of those things, we want to work with partners to make sure that it's somewhere that people could come into the entrance area, sit down, feel happy. Could we have a link to a library? That sort of thing. So it's a hub that people can go to, that we can do other things as opposed to just the sports and leisure aspect of it. So next stages for us is revisiting that, making sure we've got the right facilities for what is needed going forward, making sure that the business plan works up, and then we'll start to look at the external design, which will be heavily influenced by the master planning of where it finally ends up. So I think that that's my last slide on that. So I'm going to hand back to Jane. I'll just ask what the specific question on Walton is.
Well, the question was, what are your plans for Walton Recreation Ground? I noticed this year there have been no football posts put up, so it looked as though Is it going to be obsolescent? Is it going to be reused?
We hope to reuse it. At the moment, as you know, the changing facilities were vandalised to such an extent that they have to be replaced. So we are working on how we can replace those going forward. And if you don't have change rooms, that restricts what can be played on there when it comes to the Suffolk FA.
So is it going to remain a sports, leisure area?
Yes. It's just it's a really expensive thing to replace. It's end of life. It's been vandalised. It was horrendously vandalised. So we've got to demolish it, and we're looking at what we can replace there so that we can have, because we have to have the changing facilities there to have the football on it. That's what we're aiming for.
Thank you.
Right, lady in the back with the red coat.
In 2018, when you consulted the local people about where they wanted the leisure centre, it was unanimous that we didn't want it moved. You didn't listen to our response. I understand the need for a bigger leisure centre, but the current leisure centre feeds into the community. People come to the leisure centre, they then go across the road and use the local shops, they then go into town. How will this new leisure facility encourage people on the outskirts to come all the way into town? And my second question is, what will go on the site where the current leisure centre is?
Hello, thank you for that question. One of the issues about keeping the existing facility is that if you were to rebuild it, it's not big enough for what's needed. It will also have to be closed for 2 to 3 years whilst you rebuild it. So, yes, I understand that some people don't agree with that, but it still would not add up, as in at the moment we're heavily subsidising it, so we need a facility that's in an area that can make it work as a business. So that's that part of it. The bit on access on it, well, we are looking as overall the master planning about the cycling routes, about pathways, etc., to make it accessible. We will be looking, is there possible for bus, etc., that sort of thing. So we will be looking at what we can do to make it as accessible as possible. And that's all we can say at this moment.
You're not answering the question, because my point was, people that use the leisure centre at the moment then will come out and use local facilities and add money to the community. How will this new one encourage people to come into town and spend their money? And what's going on the leisure centre site when it's closed there?
Sorry, on the leisure, as I said, we need this. We currently subsidise heavily the Felixsowe leisure centres. To make it work, whether it was the existing one or a new one, we do need to move the site. When it comes to what's going on the current site, I probably need to pass over to you for that.
Yeah, if I can just come in there, I mean, this is slightly outside Tim's area of expertise, so I hope you accept an answer. So the existing leisure centre, as Tim has explained, needs redeveloping. It needs, building to provide the facilities that are needed for now and for the future. The site right on the seafront, we haven't we have not yet set what that's going to be. There will be more consultation on that. But the point that I want to make is we are very, very well aware of the need to make more connection from the seafront to the town centre, which is why we have done things like, over the years, improving seafront gardens, working with the pier to improve that area there. Can I just finish? When I get to the pier, the other parts of the seafront gardens, right the way down to Manor End and the CU Cafe. That is all investment that has gone in over the years to boost the seafront, to try and get more employment in the town, to maintain the kind of viability of Felixstowe. And if you look at the results and things that have happened there over the years, and the mentions that have been about the town in articles in the Guardian, in the Telegraph, working with the destination management organisations, Felixstowe, in contrast to many other places, is seen as a really vibrant seaside town. Now that's the level of ambition we've got. That's the level of ambition we've got, and we want to bring something back to the seafront that will replace the leisure centre and will do exactly what you've said. That has now to be planned.
How is the new site, how is that going to encourage people to come into town and spend their money?
The new site will be there for people in Felixstowe. It will draw people in from outside Felixstowe. That's the design. That will be, people will then decide for themselves as they do now, where they want to go for after that. As a destination leisure centre, it will pull people in, and we kind of know people go on to do other things. Okay. Again, all I can do is refer back to the other leisure centre development work and the additional people that have been brought in. So this is not being done on a whim. It's been carefully planned and worked on over the years. Excuse me, other people want to have a word, okay? I can talk to you afterwards. It's been carefully planned. The plans are being brought to you guys at an early stage for you to have your comments. And we can have you that.
We haven't. Okay. 2018, and it's unanimous. We didn't want it to move, and it's been totally ignored. So don't listen to us.
Can I suggest that we
move on, because it's
move on and we'll continue these conversations afterwards?
Yeah.
Which one?